Welcome back to the Framingham Beat. I'm Frank Morello. Joining us today is Brendan Ryan, admin for the Framingham Public Schools Food Service Program. Brendan, thank you for being with us today.
Nice to meet you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. So Brendan, can you talk a little bit about your background? Talk about a little bit how long you've been in the district and some of your other experiences.
I've kind of grown up in the restaurant industry. My father was a chef down in New York.
Okay.
I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. After that, I went on to become a banquet chef at the Waldorf Astoria. I was the executive sous chef to the New York Yacht Club. Then I came up to Boston. I was the executive chef for campus restaurants for Harvard University. And I was the executive chef for the John Hancock Plaza and also a One Financial. I always had a great interest in K through 12 dining after leaving Harvard University, because I always tried to figure out why college kids were so messed up in their eating principles.
Wow, okay.
So coming into the elementary world was a great understanding of what's going on with kids, and also it became a great focal point in the whole healthy eating,
sure,
childhood obesity, and so forth. So
if you give them a good ground foundation, then when they become the college seniors and stuff like that, they won't be as messy.
Right.
Exactly,
right.
exactly.
The one thing is, and you saw a lot of it, was there's a great move to farm to fork, plow to plate.
Definitely.
Most of what was going on in K through 12 dining was processed foods. And it was, the processed foods was not anyone's really fault. It was actually what the environment could do.
Availability, accessibility.
And also the cooking ability of the staffs that are in K through 12 dining.
Right.
It was mainly as the old lunch lady sort of.
So you came in and you made some changes. So can you talk about some of the changes that you implemented since you've been here?
Sure. When I first got here, about 80% of everything we did was processed food.
Correct.
I used to say the most used piece of equipment was a box cutter.
Wow.
Now, 80% of everything we do is from scratch.
Right.
And we have a very fluid menu, so we can change seasonally to make sure that we're encompassing as much as the farm to fork regional products that we can integrate into the menu, and again keep the children very interested in foods that they maybe are not exposed to at home.
Right, exactly.
We try and integrate a lot of fresh products.
Eliminating of trans fats was another big movement.
Absolutely. All what they call processed wheats, flours.
Right.
Everything we do now is whole grain,
Correct.
whole wheat. We got away from, say, like the chicken nuggets. Now we only do roasted chicken.
Wow.
We do, instead of like French fries or tater tots,
Sure.
we try and introduce real roasted red bliss potatoes. So as much real food, as I say.
And it sounds like maybe you could repurpose those for leftovers and do mashed potatoes the next day, do different things. Is that a possibility with you guys?
Believe it or not, we're so tight on the portion that we send out, especially in K through 12. One of our biggest enemies is waste.
Right.
So we are very tight on our portioning to make sure. That's why the classrooms do meal counts every day.
Exactly.
We make sure that we have just enough food to meet those demands,
Sure.
because again, we have to be fiscally responsible running the department to make sure that we can spend our food on what we need to spend it on and not spend it on waste going in the trash.
Right. Now, going into the trash is another agenda that you've kind of changed. No more styrofoam. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've moved. One of the biggest things coming here was they removed dish machines years ago.
Right.
So it was cheaper to use styrofoam trays and plastic utensils. Right now, we've switched 5 schools back to dish machines.
Okay.
We were very lucky. I applied for grants through the EPA. And I only applied for $13,000. They gave me $32,000.
Okay.
That money was able to rehab dish machines and install 3 new ones.
Wow.
And through the initiative of going to real hard trays and metal utensils, we've removed close to 400,000 styrofoam trays from the trash can.
And now, to get into the real crux of things, I wanted to mention something about the garden that you've implemented in the courtyard at the Framingham Public School.
So right now we're in our 10th year of the garden up at the high school. In the initial phase, and the biggest thing with the garden is it's all student run.
Right.
We really want the students to be involved. It's a student initiative. We encompass the Honor Society, the football team, as many entities of student groups that we can bring in to work the garden. They actually, every fall, we do garden clean out day. We have to haul over 20 yards of compost through the halls of the high school because the garden is the central courtyard of the high school. There's no outside access to it. So everything's got to be trucked through the school. So right now the garden, just in tomatoes, we'll harvest over 1,000 pounds of our own tomatoes.
And all your harvest from the tomatoes, the lettuce, and the different products, those will be used at the school?
100% of everything that comes out of that garden is used in the schools. We'll make over 1,000 gallons of our own tomato sauce. Our Brussels sprout crop will yield about 800 pounds of our own Brussels sprouts. We make about 30 gallons of our own pesto, 40 gallons of our own pickles. So, and then it's just a variety of all little things. Right now we've got corn growing, we've got eggplant. We just finished pickling 40 gallons of pickles. So it's a vast array.
And it doesn't sound like it stops in the summer. You guys do meals for the students throughout the summer. Can you talk a little about the summer meal program?
Sure. So through the federal government and the USDA, we run our SFFP, Summer Food Service Program. That got started, again, that didn't exist before I got here.
Okay.
So there was no program within the Metro West community that was doing that.
Right.
And now we started out with just 5 locations 9 years ago.
Right.
This summer we did 26 locations.
Wow.
The first year we did about 5,000 meals.
Okay.
This year we'll do just over 50,000 meals.
Wonderful. And I actually got to see one for myself firsthand. I was at the Pelham Apartments with Mayor Spicer and Dr. Tremblay, and we served meals to all the kids down there. It was a great thing to see the kids smiling and eating.
Yeah, the nice thing is these are students we see all during the school year. So especially us in Framingham Public Schools, the food service department, we're not an outside contract food service company.
Right.
We're mainly members of the community that work in the school environment. So we're kind of vested to these kids.
Right.
And it's great during the summer, we're seeing the same kids that we fed during the school year at all our sites. It's very funny when you're out on the site and you walk by and they go, oh, I know you.
Right.
Wow, I see you all school year. Now you're feeding us during the summer. But the one thing that we did this year was barbecues. So we went around with a food truck doing barbecues for all the kids on top of all the sandwiches and breakfasts we served.
Well, Brendan, I'd like to thank you for coming in, for taking your time to talk to Access Framingham and the Framingham Beat. And we'd like to thank the Framingham Public Schools for continuing to invest the kids and help them with the next generation. If you eat healthy, if you live healthy, you'll feel healthy. Stay tuned. The Framingham Beat will be back after these messages.